Over 150 million people in the United States play video games, and about 1.2 million violent crimes happen in the US every year. If every violent crime was committed by somebody who played video games, that's still less than 1% of video game players committing a violent crime. There's been an ongoing debate whether violent video games contribute directly to violent crimes in the United States. And learning whether this is true or false can help parents make an informed decision as to what video games they buy and let their children play. Today I'm going to persuade you that violent video games play absolutely no part in violent crimes in the United States. Now, I'm going to explain how, number one, video games act as a great outlet for people's emotions. Number two, video games have about as much of a chance of causing violent crimes as a toy gun or other forms of media violence do. And number three, scholars have even disproven the fact that video games are linked directly to real-life violent crimes. Now, everybody needs an emotional outlet for their life. And for some people, video games act as just that. Some experience negative emotions and want a positive place to be able to channel them. And Annette John Hall quotes Kenneth Scott in the Philadelphia Inquirer on February 3rd, 2012, saying, "If I was mad at school, I would go home and play Street Fighter. It was therapeutic." This is a great example of somebody who realized that they were feeling aggressive emotions and turned to video games to be able to channel these. Now, John Hall also quotes Veda Golfin saying, "The violence ends once the game is over. Any beef they have stays on the screen." As people, we have differences with one another. And a lot of times, people want to settle their differences with fighting. And fighting in a video game is much safer than fighting in real life. Number one, there's no physical repercussions. Number two, there's no legal actions that can be taken. So, in all senses, playing video games is the safest place to settle differences. And not only are they a great outlet for people's emotions, but they're a great level playing field for people as well to be able to settle any differences they may have. Violent video games have about as much of a chance of causing real-world violence as a Nerf gun does. Now, parents go to the store and they'll buy their kid fake guns without thinking twice about it. And on July 25th, 2014, Mary Flanagan in USA Today says, Our stores sell toy guns, and parents rarely give it a second thought, because toy guns aren't associated with making their children violent. Now, if you don't think that a kid pointing a fake gun at somebody is going to desensitize them to violence, why would them pointing a fake gun on a TV screen at a fake person desensitize them to violence any more than that? And parents also take their kids to violent movies and let them watch violent TV all the time without a second thought. And on February 23rd, 2018, Maya Salem and Liam Stack in the New York Times quote Supreme Court Justice Scalia saying, "Any demonstrated effects are both small and indistinguishable from effects produced by other forms of media," which means that if you allow your kids to watch violent TV, watch news, watch violent movies, then they're about as likely to contribute to violent acts of crime as a kid who plays a video game. So, toy guns and media aren't attributed or connected to violent acts of crime. So this should take away any negative stigma that video games would be causing them as well. And not only that, but a lot of scholars agree. On February 12th, 2013, Kristen M.S. Bezio from Christian Science Monitor quotes psychologist Christopher J. Ferguson saying, "The recent outcry against video games as the cause of school shootings in general is partly fallacious. He explains that among hundreds of studies on violence and video games, not a single one has proven conclusively a causal relationship between violent acts of crime and violent video game play." Now, This is a psychologist who has looked at studies and said that there's no link between violent video games and people committing violent crimes. And this isn't the only instance of it. On November 23rd, 2014, in NewsRx Health and Science, it quotes Christopher Ferguson again, saying, "There's a risk that identifying the wrong problem, such as media violence, may distract society from more pressing issues, such as poverty, educational and vocational disparities, and mental health." Now, if we're throwing all of our limited sources to trying to find out if video games are causing real-life violence, then we're going to totally miss all the real important factors that are contributing to real-life violence. And we only have so many resources that we can use, so we need to be able to focus them in the correct area. So in short, professionals completely disregard the fact that video games are a cause for real-life violence. And I was able to go over 3 important factors with you. The fact that video games are a great outlet for people's emotions. Number 2, that video games have about as much of a chance of causing real-life violence as a Nerf gun or a violent TV show. And number 3, that scholars have even disproven the fact that violent video games are linked to real-life violence. Now, a lot of kids play video games, but few of them, if any, contribute to real-life violence. So this should help people realize that there's no connection between the two, and video games are safe for everybody to play.